Welcome to a new action drama, science fiction film titled The Kitchen. The story takes place in a future version of London, in a scenario that could realistically happen. It is set inside a housing project, or settlement, known as the Kitchen, which the government wants to seize and demolish despite strong opposition from all its residents. Some have already been forcibly evicted from their homes, while those who remain continue to resist with all their strength, even after the government cuts off all support, including water and electricity. They are constantly monitored by drone aircraft, which are even authorized to kill anyone they capture. The film opens inside the kitchen community when water is cut off from the Western Wing. We hear this announcement through the voice of Lord Kitchener, also known as the King of the Kitchen, speaking over the internal radio system. His voice reaches all residents, uniting them in both their celebrations and their hardships. We are introduced to Easy, one of the kitchen's residents, who lives in a small, modest apartment. As soon as he hears Lord Kitchener's voice and learns that the water has been shut off, he rushes to the western wing of the kitchen, where only one shower is still working. There, we see his selfish behavior, as he spends a long time showering, ignoring the angry knocking of other residents at the door. He only cares about himself, and takes his time without any concern for others. Like the rest of the residents, Easy is under constant pressure from the police, who want to eliminate the kitchen entirely, and relocate those who can afford rent to luxurious neighborhoods. Easy hates trouble, so he has been preparing to move to a better place. He starts saving money in order to afford the rent for a new room. After getting dressed, he rides his motorcycle to work, moving through streets crowded with people, cars, neon signs, and hologram advertisements. He crosses a dividing line into another part of the city, clean, quiet, cold, and rigid, dominated by silent, sterile buildings. At the same time, a gang from the kitchen led by Staples roams the city in groups using SUVs and motorcycles. They hijack a transport truck, bring it back to the kitchen, and distribute the food inside to the residents. These people may be starving, but at least they still have a roof over their heads, for now. We return to Easy, who works in the modern part of the city for a company called Life After Life, a funeral service that turns human ashes into soil suitable for planting. A new seed is placed in the soil so that a loved one can care for the tree, nurture it, and keep it alive. The company convinces clients that the spirit of the deceased lives on inside the tree. Easy sells different memorial packages, each priced according to the type of ceremony performed. The company claims it is protecting the environment by planting these trees, which seems to be the real goal, because there is no soul here. In the kitchen, however, there is real life, painful, raw, and practical. It comes as no surprise to learn that the kitchen is regularly subjected to organized, authoritarian crackdowns by the government. Residents bang on pots and pans to warn each other before the police arrive wearing riot gear and carrying batons, beating, arresting, and sometimes killing anyone who doesn't move fast enough or isn't lucky enough to barricade themselves inside their apartments. The next day, as usual, Easy brushes his teeth and looks into a mirror filled with digital notifications, including reminders about his application for an apartment in Buenavida, a shiny new housing project outside the kitchen promoted heavily by the government. He presses later and heads to work. There, he witnesses a single funeral. His expression tells us that he knew the deceased woman, who is placed behind a door, only for a tree to emerge in her place. Her name is Tony Clark. The boy quietly saying goodbye to his mother is Benji, about 13 years old. Benji notices that Easy shows special care toward his mother's plant. Since Benji has no one looking out for him, he approaches Easy and asks why he cares so much about the plant. Easy refuses to talk and tells him he's just doing his job. He explains that he knew Tony briefly when she lived in the kitchen and knows nothing about her afterward. He has no intention of taking responsibility for Benji and walks away. But guilt and compassion pull him back. He returns, takes Benji home, drops him off, and leaves. Later that night, Benji sits in the darkness until midnight to open the gift his mother left for him before she died. Inside, he finds a beautiful bicycle that he instantly loves. We return to life in the kitchen, which is brutally difficult. Water is scarce, or completely unavailable, but that isn't the worst of it. Lord Kitchener delivers speeches over the radio, broadcast throughout the kitchen, urging residents to unite. He claims that if they stand together, the government will be forced to give in to their demands and will never be able to defeat them, because they are right, this is their home, and they will never leave it. This discrimination is not directed only at black people. There are white residents in the kitchen as well, but rather a form of capitalist discrimination against the poor and the powerless. As a result, extreme violence erupts due to the massive income gap between the kitchen and the wealthy districts. Gangs operate from the lower levels of the kitchen, while Lord Kitchener's radio station is located at the very top, a symbolic reflection of class hierarchy within this society. The film suggests that even this marginalized community has its own internal structure and rules. The strange residential complex known as the Kitchen occupies a vast area in the heart of London, forcing its people to rely solely on themselves. Benji begins wandering through the kitchen, asking about Easy, but no one answers him. He doesn't understand this environment, or how to deal with its people. While riding his bike through the kitchen, he encounters Staples and his gang. Staples is impressed by Benji's cycling skills and offers him a place among them, along with a bed, shelter, and a motorcycle. Although they don't mention the dangers or problems he may face later, those risks are clearly implied. That night, Benji cries nonstop. The next day, Benji joins the gang on the rooftop of the kitchen, where they start their day with the game they always play, shooting down police surveillance drones using slingshots and stones. Benji gets lucky and manages to take one of the drones down, which makes Staples extremely proud of him. After that, they head out together, roaming the streets looking for any opportunity or job to take advantage of. Easy spots Benji and calls out to him, warning him to stay away from the gang because they're nothing like him. Easy clearly looks worried about Benji, but he tries to hide it. First, because Benji represents a huge responsibility, and his presence threatens Easy's carefully controlled life as someone who prefers to live alone and still hasn't decided whether the kitchen is truly his home or a place he should leave behind. Second, because Easy believes he must remain emotionally distant. He keeps telling himself that he never had a strong relationship with Tony and that he is not Benji's father. Meanwhile, Benji believes the time has come for Easy to become his dad. He begins testing him, waiting to see when Easy will finally show real care. Benji's mother had told him that she knew Easy and asked him to go visit him, but she never directly said he was his father. Still, Benji firmly believed that Easy was his real, biological dad, even though he had no direct way to ask him. Even members of the gang, Staples, Ozzy, and Dit, were surprised when they saw Easy protecting the new kid in the neighborhood, despite there being no clear promise or commitment from Easy. Benji starts wondering how he's going to survive and asks Easy to let him stay with him forever. Easy can't promise him anything. But when he looks at the young boy, something inside him begins to change. He decides to delay paying the deposit on the one-bedroom apartment in Buena Vista and starts searching for a shared housing unit instead. He officially cancels the single apartment and reapplies for a two-person unit so he can bring Benji with him, an option that would cost a huge amount of money. At the same time, the police raid the kitchen and brutally attack Lord Kitchener. They arrest the entire family of Ruby, the girl who lives next door to Easy. Benji manages to sneak her away, and the first person he thinks of to protect her from the police is Easy. She keeps knocking on the door until he opens it, and they manage to shut it just in time. From that moment on, a chain of new events begins in Easy's life, events that force him to confront his problems and try to do the right thing. One of those moments happens when Easy visits a friend and coworker and discovers that he has a beautiful daughter whom he loves deeply, and who loves him back. Before the police raid, Benji and Easy had a good relationship, but everything changes when Benji asks to move in with him. Easy continues searching for shared housing, but saving enough money for the deposit proves extremely difficult. On top of that, he would have to give up his single apartment. Eventually, Easy leaves Benji behind in the kitchen and moves into his one-bedroom apartment without telling him. In practical terms, he abandons him. Benji, the innocent boy, had believed that Easy was there to take care of him. One day, Easy goes to work and hears an emergency alert warning of an unauthorized gathering in Sector 6. When he arrives, he finds the entire Kitchen community participating in the funeral procession of Lord Kitchener, who died because he couldn't survive the brutality of the police. Everyone is deeply devastated, including Easy, who stands there crying alongside his co-workers and all the residents of the Kitchen. Lord Kitchener had been the one who united them and gave them hope every morning through his voice on the radio. At the same time, the gangs respond to Lord Kitchener's death by planning chaos across the entire city. Benji has almost no options left, so he returns to Staples and rejoins the gang. He begins taking part in riots and the destruction of property throughout the city. Blinded by rage, Staples storms into the apartment of innocent civilians with Benji and terrorizes them. Horrified by what's happening, Benji escapes from Staples and runs back to the Kitchen, falling into a deep depression. The gangs succeed in delivering their message to the government, but the consequences have yet to arrive. Even after settling into his new apartment, Easy can't forget Benji. When he learns about Lord Kitchener's death and realizes the situation in the Kitchen is spiraling out of control, he knows the police will return for revenge after what Staples has done, and he's absolutely right. Driven by guilt and responsibility, Easy returns to the Kitchen, especially because he still hasn't fulfilled the one thing the boy truly asked of him. When he confronts Benji, the boy explodes with anger and throws him out, shoving him away, completely fed up and emotionally exhausted. Easy understands and endures it all, trying to make things right, but Benji refuses to forgive him. Until Easy surprises him by bringing his mother's plant, so Benji can feel that she's still with him all the time. Benji is overjoyed, and the two of them go out together to replant it in real soil so it can grow naturally. Suddenly, warning signals echo through the Kitchen. They immediately leave the plant behind and run toward their apartment, but the police, arriving in massive numbers to take revenge, capture Benji. Easy fights desperately and manages to pull Benji from their hands. They lock themselves inside the room and remain trapped, watching as the police clash with Staples and his men. The gang succeeds in trapping several riot control officers and soldiers and begins planning something far worse for them. The situation becomes extremely dangerous. All Benji can do in that moment is ask Easy whether he is really his father or not. Easy hesitates slightly, as if afraid to admit the truth. Then he changes his words and promises Benji that he will take care of him like a father would. Doubt returns to Benji's mind about whether Easy is truly his father, but it no longer matters. The door appears to be breaking open, and that becomes the film's final shot. Despite the open ending, it's easy to imagine what happens next. They are likely forced to face the consequences of Staples' actions and the violence of the gangs. Whether Easy spent the entire film unsure if he was Benji's real father or not, one thing is clear: he genuinely wanted to protect and care for him. If they survive the brutal police assault, they will stay together in the new apartment. The worst possible outcome is that Easy dies, since he had previously attacked a police officer to reach the room, and they would never let that go unpunished. In that case, Benji would become an orphan once again and would have no choice but to join a gang just to survive. That was the end of the film. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.